Over the years, gaming's attempt to be the next big thing has seen as many face meets pavement stumbles as it has roaring successes. In so many cases, what starts as one awesome idea brought to life by a team of creatives gets strung out into needless sequels, spin-offs and revivals just to keep the money flowing in. The issue is dedicated fanbases who have been there since the beginning, those who know deep down what does and doesn't belong. The games featured here are far from duds, but when mass market execution meets die-hard fan backlash, the results are always worth dissecting. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 best-selling video game sequels hardcore fans hated. Number 8. Resident Evil 6. As you'll notice as this list unfolds, as many as any fanbase loves a specific IP for its unique mechanics, characters and gameplay feel, action, just nebulous action, will always sell to the mainstream. Case in point, Resident Evil 6. Capcom increasingly chasing Gears of War's crowd across the 2000s was seen as desperate and patently ridiculous, even if RE5 was an absolute blast at the time, especially in co-op. Yet when RE6 rolled around, it was just too much. With Capcom going all out with explosive set pieces, roundhouse kicks, and even zombies returning fire with guns, fans had had enough. And yet RE6 still turned in 4.8 million units across its first 3 months, just 0.2 million less than RE5. It would take until late 2020 for Resident Evil 7, a more traditional installment yet still in first person, to become the best-selling individual entry in the series. Yet if we account for re-releases over time, Resident Evil 4, 5 and 6 are still Capcom's top 3. Number 7. Splinter Cell Blacklist. It's astonishing to think back on how prolific and talked about the original Splinter Cell trilogy was, and then look at its sales numbers. Where 2002's title landed with 9 million units sold, instantly putting Sam Fisher alongside Solid Snake as a recognizable icon of the stealth genre and gaming overall, mainstream audiences quickly dropped off. Pandora Tomorrow and Chaos Theory turned in sales of around 2 million apiece, with Double Agent falling even further. Conviction's attempt to revive things by going in a melee-focused direction was genuinely laughable when Ubisoft first showed it off, but sales did start to recover with this installment. As wider audiences responded to the mark and execute run-and-gun approach, Splinter Cell Blacklist actually became the 4th best-selling entry in the franchise, getting back up above 2 million units. Swapping out Michael Ironside and redesigning Sam Fisher had longtime players running for the hills, but if the stealth genre hadn't died out altogether around this period, chances are we'd still have seen more titles in the vein of Conviction and Blacklist, not the originals. Number 6. Halo 5. Halo 5 sales were peak video game PR, we need to cover this up type business, but with the reality of zero clarity on sales figures to this day, we just have to go off what Microsoft said. And according to them, Halo 5 sold on par with Halo 1, 2, 3 and 4. Sales numbers for the original Halos are stratospheric, with Halo 3 landing in the region of 14 million plus. It was a genuinely life-solidifying moment too. You knew where you were when Halo 3 launched, and it represented the peak of Bungie's time with the IP. Following that, 343 Industries' work on Halo 4 onwards has gone from questionable to occasionally despised by Halo fans, not helped by a marketing campaign for Halo 5 that was literally built on a lie and referred to by 343 as a huge disappointment. And yet, despite everything, Halo 5 sold. Its recorded number on Wikipedia is 5 million plus, but those earlier numbers came from an interview between Microsoft and industry analyst Michael Pachter. He also gleaned that Halo 5's obtrusive loot boxes generated more revenue than all previous map packs too, as Microsoft revealed that player numbers only halved whenever people realized they couldn't access newer content. After all these years of infuriating microtransactions, maybe there is a silver lining we can all eventually agree on if information like this was made more widely available. Number 5. Fallout 4. Once one of the most anticipated games ever, then a lukewarm, sure, it's more Fallout I guess, launch day reaction, now a title whose name routinely divides rooms into factions of for and against. Where Fallout 4 knocked it out the park though was through sales, amassing a powerful 14 million units sold as of March 2020, that's double fan favourite Fallout New Vegas, and over 100 times more than 2009's Fallout Trilogy collection, comprising Fallout 1, 2 and Brotherhood of Steel. Point being that for as much as we, the assumed regular game players, hated the dumbed-down dialogue system, the nebulous sarcasm option, the half-baked settlement mode, the endless Minutemen missions, and the recycled game feel, the vast majority drank that stuff in. The nearest competitor to Fallout 4's sales domination is Fallout 3, sitting around 4 million lower but still turning in powerful numbers thanks to being Bethesda's first take on the mythos. The big question now is, what the hell does Fallout 5 even look and play like? Number 4. Sonic Unleashed. Thankfully, the best-selling Sonic the Hedgehog is by far the original, as has become the series' reputation for it being one good game, not something I personally agree with. It's still clear that since 1991, Sega have routinely struggled to recapture that must-play energy that someone like Mario never lost. With that in mind, they've tried everything from giving a version of him twin pistols for 2005 Shadow the Hedgehog, rebooting with a human princess romance in 2006, to thinking maybe the hedgehog part was the problem all along. Now chasing the God of War / Devil May Cry route, Sonic Unleashed had the titular hog transform into a werehog whenever the moon went down. It split your time between Sonic Adventure-style over-shoulder speed and far slower button-mashy combat as you laid out scores of enemies in Sonic's bulkier form. Whilst longtime fans took one look at yet another trend-chasing development cycle, Sonic Unleashed had sales that to this day beat the vast majority of the entire franchise. Hoovering up 2 million units shipped, it beats both versions of Sonic 3, the beloved Sonic Generation, Sonic Heroes, and all portable versions. Maybe Sonic is just cooler with fangs and claws. I mean, all three Vex fans have been screaming that for years. Number 3, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Of all the games on this list, The Phantom Pain is the mixiest of mixed bags. Its combat and environment design is utterly ludicrously stellar. MGS5 is easily one of the most satisfying action games ever, a brilliant mix of item-based improvisation, snappy controls, surprising responsive AI, and a tightly designed map. This mix helped it become one of the best-selling installments in the entire franchise, shifting over 6 million copies in its first year, and putting it neck and neck with Metal Gear Solid on PS1 and the mighty PS2 entry Sons of Liberty. Sadly though, Phantom Pain was dogged and ultimately destroyed narratively by a brutal feud between Hideo Kojima and Konami. The latter made no bones about wanting to get out of the gaming business across 2015, and as such MGS5's development was cut short and denied an ending, infuriating fans as it formed an essential part of the timeline. Coupled with a certain clone twist that arguably breaks the canon anyway, and to this day it's hard to recommend MGS5 without noting its slew of narrative issues. From David Hayter not playing Snake to everything with Skullface and Quiet being severely undercooked, yes, we all played it and loved it, but Phantom Pain is largely cast aside by the MGS faithful. Number 2, Hitman Absolution. Like Splinter Cell refining and changing its approach to stealth, a genre that was in itself waxing and waning across the 2000s, Hitman Absolution saw IO Interactive attempt to do a far more straightforward Hitman experience. Assassinations and careful planning were still there, but not in every level. A furtive detection system later got perfected in the rebooted 2016 game, but Absolution was derided and largely hated at the time, appearing to be yet another game that was foregoing its origins to chase the Call of Duty crowd. As was again the case with Splinter Cell Blacklist though, Absolution sold incredibly well. Bringing in unit sales of 3.6 million across its first 4 months, that almost beat Hitman 2 Silent Assassin's 3.7 million accrued between the much longer period of 2002 to 2009. This also dwarfed fan-favourite entry Hitman Blood Money, which only managed 2.1 million unit sales from 2006 when collated in 2011. IO's rebooted Hitman games would thankfully become their strongest yet, thanks to segmented episodic releases growing the player base to over 13 million users. As for the previous mainline titles though, chances are it's Absolution that the average person has played. And number 1, Doom 3. Arguably powered just as much by id Software showcasing their new id Tech game engine as the Doom name itself, Doom 3 still managed to thoroughly annoy diehards by being a completely different game. If it had been called Doom Mars Survival or whatever other title you can think of, this installment might have gone down far better. As it stands though, Doom 3 is not only the black sheep of the franchise, but to some one of the most disappointing shooters of all time. Down to id wanting to steer away from the arcadey run-and-gun nature of Doom and into atmospheric survival horror, the launch version of Doom 3 notoriously forced you to switch between a firearm and a flashlight, killing stone dead the idea of moving and firing with any confidence. Later mods and re-releases would fix this, but regardless of everything, Doom 3 fast became id Software's biggest sales success. With Doom 1 and 2 having sold under 3 million copies by 2007, that same year saw Doom 3 sitting on 3.5 million units worldwide. Obviously, we now have versions of Doom available on every platform known to humankind, even a couple of printers and a calculator, but if we're talking those crucial first few years, it seems Doom 3's defenders were right all along. And those are just 8 best-selling video game sequels that hardcore fans hated. Let me know your own favourites down in the comments below, and please subscribe to the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll catch you soon.